Good afternoon, everyone. We are here today to talk about Google Classroom. Hopefully most of you have started Google Classroom, you've created a classroom, and we're going to talk about ways that you can be more efficient with it and go a little bit farther into Google Classroom and make sure that it's meeting your needs as a teacher for your students. I have slides for today. Let me grab the link real quick so you can follow along if you like on your own. And then, of course, you can follow along on the screen as well. So there are the slides in the chat. My computer is wicked slow today. I had a lot of trouble putting the slides together this morning. It took me about twice as long. So if things get laggy, I apologize. So here's our screen. So we're gonna blast off into Google Classroom a little bit further. And we're gonna talk about how to be efficient. Some of you might be feeling overwhelmed by the different things that you can do in Google Classroom and you're kind of stuck at that point of, well, I've made a Google Classroom, what am I supposed to do with it? So we're gonna dive in. I did try to split it up into categories. I like to kind of categorize stuff. It makes it easier to go back and find what you're looking for. So the first category I have is organization, ways to keep you and your students organized when you're using Google Classroom. And to do that, one of the ways you can do that is to reuse your posts or assignments. So I know a lot of us used Google Classroom in the spring, if not before that, but definitely in the spring, a lot of users jumped onto Google Classroom. So all of those posts and announcements and things that you put up in your Google Classroom in the spring, you can reuse whenever you want to. So you can go into your classwork tab, you can click the create button, and then at the bottom of the list of options, there's a choice to reuse a post. So then you would find the class where that post was originally used, and you would find the post itself, and you would click to reuse it. And then it would pop up in that edit screen that you get when you create from scratch. So you can adjust the post. You don't have to reuse it exactly as it was the first time. You can edit it, you can adjust due dates, you can add additional information. If the first time around the kids had trouble following the directions, you can edit those directions and make them more clear. And then you can assign it to your students or to the class that you have going on this year. And this is for announcements, this is for quizzes, this is for assignments, anything that you've posted in Google Classroom, you can reuse it. You can also differentiate your assignments. So just like in the classroom where you might have a small group of students who do a slightly modified version of the assignment, and you might have another group that only does, let's say 2/3 of the questions on the worksheet and you've highlighted them for them, which ones they're supposed to do. You can do something similar in Google Classroom. Again, you would go to classwork, you would go to create, and this time you would choose assignment. You would locate the assignment in your Google Drive and you would fill in the title and the details. And then at the right-hand side of the sidebar, you'd be able to select the specific student. So it defaults to all students in the classroom. You could go down that list and check or uncheck students from that list to see who it's assigned to. And then you would repeat these steps to create the alternate versions of that assignment. So you might have the same working file, but for example, maybe you have a group of students, like I said, who only do the first 8 problems. So in the directions for those students, you might say, do problems 1 through 8. You might have another group of students who need a totally modified version of the assignment. They need more work area. So you might have a different file that you assign to those students, but you would call the assignment the same thing so that everybody thinks that they're getting the same task to complete. The other thing a lot of teachers do is they use topics, and we've talked about topics before, but I wanted to kind of hit on this really hard. It really helps you stay organized as a teacher for where your assignments and your posts are, but it really helps the kids as well. And if any of you had children of your own who participated in remote learning this spring, you could see how the teacher's style of using Google Classroom really impacted the student themselves. I have 2 students, one who was in 4th grade, which was a single teacher for all topics. I had a 6th grader who had 2 teachers, one for math and science and one for ELA and social studies. And the style across those 3 teachers, not even counting their specialists, was so very different. And I got to see lots of examples of how Google Classroom could be used. So some of the ways you can sort this, and again, it's personal preference, it's what works for you, and then teaching your students how to navigate these topics. So if you have a single Google Classroom, you might want to sort your topics by subject. So one for ELA, one for math, one for science, one for social studies. So it makes it easier for the students to find those assignments. You might, if you have a separate classroom for each subject, so a math classroom, a science classroom, an ELA classroom, you might want to break it down by the topic that you're covering. So for example, in a math classroom, you might have a fractions topic. You might have a base 10 topic. You might have a time and measurement topic. Another style that I saw over the spring closure was sorting by date, whether it was Monday, May whatever, Tuesday, May whatever, or by the whole week itself. Sometimes the teacher preferred to have everything organized sequentially, and that way they were able to stay organized and the students knew exactly which assignments were due at what time. Some teachers teach by theme, but I'm thinking things like kindergarten, where maybe you're teaching a penguins theme and you're kind of tying that in, or you have apples going on, you want to sort by that. And the important thing to remember is that these can be rearranged. So once you've created a topic, I believe it defaults to the top. And then when you assign things into that topic, they organize themselves from top to bottom. But you can rearrange the tasks within the topic, and you can rearrange the order of the topics themselves. So you might not like the way that Google kind of drops them in there. You can use the drag and drop feature to rearrange them. A lot of teachers have also suggested to have a separate topic for materials and references, things that the kids need to look at and refer back to, but not necessarily complete anything. And another thing teachers have said was helpful is to have a topic for completed work. So once the topic is done, you finished everything within that topic. I'm thinking specifically the date or the content topic selections on the slide. Once those things have passed, you reassign all of those things in that topic to a completed work topic so that they're kind of out, because otherwise you're going to have a list of 20, 30, 40 topics on your sidebar, and it could get overwhelming for both you and your students. So keep the ones that are current and relevant, and then kind of retire some of those into a completed topic. We'll do one more and then we'll stop for questions. We've talked about this one before too, but it's pretty important. The stream in Google Classroom can get very overwhelming. It's similar to your stream in Twitter or Facebook. Everything gets dumped on there. And if you have announcements and quizzes and assignments and reminders and all of this being dumped into your stream, it can get very overwhelming for the students, and they're not going to know where to find stuff. So the easiest way to clean it up is to turn off assignment notifications. When you create an assignment or a material, it shows up on the classwork tab, but it's also going to show up in the stream tab. So you want to make sure that it's only showing up in the classwork tab. Excuse me. And you can turn off those notifications in the settings. And we can talk about how to do that if anybody doesn't know where that is. But that makes it so that only those reminders and announcements that you're giving your students, those show up in the stream so that it's easier for them to find. And then they know they have to click on classwork to find those assignments. So I'm going to stop for a sec. Any questions? Everybody good?
Sarah, I have one. It's Pam.
Yes, please.
So with your experience, you said, you know, with your own kids, which teacher, not naming the teacher, or just like style, I guess, is what sure. I'm going for. What you find was the easiest for your kids to follow and for you as the parent?
I personally, and based off of my children's personal preference, I did not prefer the content or topic area sorting of the topics. I much preferred the date sort. And the way, so my son, his teacher, she taught all 4 content areas. She had one Google Classroom. She didn't have a math class, a reading class, a science class. She had one Google Classroom. And the way she did it is she posted a topic for the week. And then within there, she had Monday, math, and then whatever the name of the assignment was, Tuesday, math, whatever it was. And then, so within each week, there were, let's say 16 assignments. Maybe some of them were double days or something like that. But she had 16 assignments in each topic because there was a reading, a math, a social studies, and a science. She kind of changed hers a little bit. She started out just doing topics, like a Monday topic, a Tuesday topic, and then after a couple weeks, she did it for the week span. Either way was fine. We were good navigating that. My daughter's two teachers did like adding and subtracting fractions and Australia, and it was just really hard to find what she was supposed to do for that week. So I feel like the sequential, more date organized seemed to work better for them. It was just preference and what was easier for us, but I don't know. Anybody else?
I have a question about,
Please.
So the cleaning up the stream question.
Yes.
So turning off the assignment notification in the stream is what you're suggesting?
Yes.
So, so the only place that they would get where they would go to click would be the assignment in the classroom?
Correct.
Okay.
Because what we found is that a lot of kids were getting the assignment notification in the stream, but they weren't necessarily always clicking on it, and they were losing the announcements that were posted in the stream. They were getting bogged down and pushed down. So if you posted an announcement, and then after that you posted 4 or 5 assignments, all of a sudden that announcement's pulled down to the bottom. So they were missing those reminders and, hey, this is coming up, or hey, do this, and they just weren't able to kind of understand that they still had to scroll down, because especially our younger kids, they're looking at the first 1 or 2 things on the screen. They're not scrolling down.
Right. When and a follow-up kind of question, I was sorting by date in the spring, and with the week model with each day, and I was using color-coded words for each day to try to help guide them through the document, which I found helpful.
Awesome.
I didn't get too much feedback, so I'm not sure what was useful and what wasn't.
Yes.
But if we go into, if we actually do this hybrid and, trying to organize, so I'm struggling with like the best way to identify who's who with the lessons. So like, say week 1, and then there'd be like day A, B, which would be Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday, Friday, depending on which class was looking at it. So all of the A, and everybody would do the A, everybody would do the B, is how I'm kind of leaning towards it. Does that make sense?
It does, yes. You could even call it like, I'm just trying to think of like different ways. If you do the A, B, and then, C, everybody does C for the Wednesday day, or you could call it like day 1, part 1, day 1, part, or week 1, part 1, week 1, part 2. You could break it up that way. Honestly, it's going to be like a guess and test and figure out what works for you and what works for your students. There's no right or wrong in this. Nobody else has done it before. So we're all just trying to figure it out as we go. But if you come up with a system that's working, please share it with your colleagues, because everybody's probably in the same situation of trying to figure it out.
Thank you.
Yep, thank you, Bob. All right, I'm gonna jump back into the slides. All right. So another thing that a lot of teachers don't know is that Google Classroom automatically links up to Google Calendar for both teacher and student. And there's a couple ways that you can see this. So what happens when you create a Google Classroom is it automatically creates a new Google Calendar specifically for that classroom and anyone who's part of that classroom. So that means you've created a Google Classroom. You now have a calendar for that Google Classroom on your school calendar, but it also creates a calendar for all of your students and your co-teachers as well. And what it also does is when you create assignments and you give those assignments due dates, those due dates for those assignments are automatically added to the Google Calendar. So the students don't need to go, oh, Mrs. Monahan says this assignment is due next Wednesday. Now I have to go to my calendar and pull it up and enter it in and put all the details there. Google Classroom does all of that. So it makes it really easy for the students and for the teacher to remember when due dates are and when things are coming around due. It keeps track of all the Google Classrooms that the student is enrolled in. So all of those assignments will keep being put on their Google Calendar. So it's just like having a digital version of their planner or agenda. There's also access to a to-do section of Google Classroom. And what it does is it keeps track of all assignments for the kids. You can do this so that you can see all of your classes at one time, or you can do it class by class. There's a way to do it both ways, and for the teacher as well. Students would be able to see what assignments have been finished and turned in, which assignments are upcoming due, which assignments are missing, as well as which assignments have been returned and graded to them. So they're able to see an entire list of all the assignments that they have, whether it's class by class or all of the classes together, and how each of those assignments is, like the status of them, whether they're turned in, whether they're missing, returning graded, whatever situation applies to them. The to-do list is available for all of the classes at the same time. When they click on the 3 bars in the upper left-hand corner, we call it the hamburger. One of the options underneath their list of classes is a to-do list. They can also see it when they go into the classwork tab of an individual class. There's a, I think it either says your work or to-do list. They click on that button and it brings up all of the assignments for that classroom. The other thing you can do to stay organized, particularly if you're using Google Slides and you're using a particularly long presentation for the kids, if you want to provide them with feedback, you can insert blank slides that have a colorful background. And those are the slides where you give the kids feedback. And what it does is when you're looking at your slides, instead of the way we're looking at them now with the slide sorter on the side, when you look at your slides in grid view, which I just switched mine to, those slides with the colorful background will stand out. So you and the student will know specifically where to go to add that feedback and to see that feedback. So it helps everybody stay a little more organized. Switching it back, there we go. And the last suggestion I have, some teachers use this in the upper grades, but I really feel it's more beneficial with our younger kiddos. Google Classroom has kind of been used a lot for our older students, and they're very familiar with the structure and where things are. Our younger kiddos, in particularly kindergarten to 2nd grade, they're very unfamiliar with Google Classroom, and it might be a little difficult for them to navigate since it's very text heavy. So one of the suggestions that's been brought up on the internet is to create a class website, a Google website, and you can actually get a link for individual assignments, post them onto the site, and when they click on those links, it will take them directly to where they need to go in Google Classroom to open up the file or watch the video or do whatever they need to do. So, sorry, mailman. When you're in Google Classroom, you can click on 3 little dots next to each assignment, and it gives you a chance to copy the link for that assignment. And when you copy that, you can paste it where you want. There's a blog post right here linked on the slide that will take you directly into the step-by-step directions of how to do that, and we can talk about that as well. So our next section is going to be on grading. So I'm going to stop sharing for a sec. Does anybody have questions about any of those topics so far? You good? Great.
I have a question. Sorry.
Please. No, please.
It says I'm still muted, but
You're not.
Okay. So the Google Calendar, into the classwork, it's located like somewhere up at the top, right? So
Yes.
we tell them click there and you can see what's due each day.
Yep.
That's all. It's just very simple. It's already generated and they can just click on there. Okay.
So they can get to it a couple different ways. They can get to it through Google Classroom, or they can get to it it's just on their Google Calendar. So like if they have a bookmark or a shortcut to Google Calendar, it's on there too. Like it's not just in Google Classroom, it's also on their Google Calendar account.
I see. And like the to-do list,
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't really understand. It just sounds like it sounds like a lot of stuff is going on there because it's telling you not only what you have to do, but what you've done. And you mentioned.
So you can, you can turn, it can be very overwhelming and confusing, but you can turn on different filters so that you can see the way, like the status of the different things. So I'm pulling up one of my kiddos right now. All right, let me share what I have. All right, so this is my son's Google Classroom account. He has a Spanish class, he had his PE teacher, his art teacher, and his music teacher. His other teachers have already archived their classroom. So for example, his main classroom teacher, she's already archived her classroom. That's why it's not on this list. But if I go to the main menu, the hamburger, and I go to the to-do list right here, it's showing me all classes and it's showing me what he has not turned in. These are his missing assignments. So I can pick which classroom I want to look at. If I want to, I can pull up the archived classrooms over here. So if I go, I just want to see Spanish, or I can see the work that he's finished. So there's to-do work, meaning it's not finished yet, and there's done work. So I can see what's been done. And she didn't return anything. So it'll even tell them when it's done late. I'm trying to find one who returned stuff. Doesn't look like any of them did. Oh, so this particular teacher, his music teacher, actually graded some of the items. So when you grade it in Google Classroom, on the Done tab, it will tell you the grade that you have. If it's ungraded, it'll just say returned. But they're able to flip back and forth between these two, as well as pick individual classes or all classes. And then if he were to do this through his individual classroom, so right now I'm in his Spanish classroom. If I go to classwork and I go up here to view your work, this is where I'll see that same list. And again, I can sort over here on the side, turned in, missing, returned. And whoops, I lost it. I can also see, we were talking about that Google Calendar. I can link to Google Calendar. And it takes me straight into Google Calendar so I can see all of those due dates. And if I go back to when some of the stuff was actually due, there you go. So you see, I have the different assignments and when they were due for various things. So you can get to it all from Google Classroom and it will send you where you need to go to see it all. Patty, what's up?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to have to go in and archive all of my classes, me personally, from 2019, 2020. They're all still there.
Correct.
Did you already, because I've only been joining your lessons, your sessions for about a week and a half now.
That's okay.
You already go over how to start brand new classrooms for the kids that are coming to us in August or September?
Okay. So there's a couple different ways you can do it. Were you using Google Classroom all year or just from the shutdown?
All year.
All year. So what you're probably going to want to do, even though it won't be perfect, we talk about it a little bit later in the slides, but you're going to archive those classrooms, but you're also going to make copies of them, because what that does is it takes all of the assignments and things that you had going on in that classroom and brings them over into your new classroom without posting them yet. So it brings them over as drafts. So we'll talk about that a little more.
Okay.
If you're starting over brand new, you would just go to Google Classroom and you would do the plus sign in the upper corner and you would create a new class.
Okay. Would you suggest, so right now I have, actually for the past 2 or 3 years since September, I have 5 classes, only science. So I've got the yellow, green, blue. They're all there and I just replaced the students' names because I want to have all of the assignments in case if there are some I'm going to use again this year. So when I archive them, I still will have, me personally, I'll have access to them if I want.
Yes,
They're just not visible.
correct.
Okay.
So when you archive a class, what it does is it takes it off of your main dashboard and it takes it off of the student's main dashboard. You still have access to all of your assignments and things that you've submitted or you've assigned to them. And you still have access to all of the posts that you made. So it just kind of puts it like in this storage box in the
Okay.
file cabinet. It doesn't get rid of it. It doesn't delete it.
Okay. So I have a question maybe for any 3rd or 4th grade teachers if they're here today. Can I expect my 5th grade kid coming in to be familiar with Google Classroom? Or am I starting from step 1? It depends on the teacher. Okay. Okay.
So Anne can probably answer it a little better than I can, but knowing from experience and who I've worked with down the various hallways, it depends on who their teacher was, whether they used it or whether they just started using it at the closure.
So do you think, Sarah, if we have to start remotely, if that's the decision that's made, as a teacher, is one of my very first tasks to educate the kids on Google Classroom?
Yes.
And
I would say yes, no matter what grade level, yes.
How about the parents? All of these nice
Yes.
things that you're showing us. So how do we educate the parents?
So right now I am working to put together a video tutorial for parents. I have a couple things already made for students. I haven't shared them out yet because I'm tweaking them. I'm working on doing one for parents, and we are trying to work with the FRC and the translators to do like a voiceover type thing. But it's not a certain thing, but there's also stuff out there already made on YouTube and whatnot. There's, printoutable stuff, there's video stuff, but they're not Milford specific. So we're trying to make something Milford specific.
Okay,
Sarah,
thank you very much.
The to-do list
Mhm.
would be great for parents to know, because then they can see all the assignments. They can,
Yes.
when their kids are saying, I've done it, I've done it.
That to-do list was my best friend. I used that to-do list every day. And I actually not on Monday, because not all of the teachers posted on Monday. Some of like the specialists posted on Tuesday. I actually printed out the to-do list on Tuesday. And we would sit and like manually cross out stuff like a checklist as it was getting finished.
That's a great idea. Like, I didn't know anything about the
Yep.
to-do list, and it was hard to talk to parents. I would be texting
Yep.
parents.
Nope, the to-do list is awesome.
My student said she did it or he did it. So
Mhm.
that would be great if that's in your parent
Yes.
presentation.
Yeah, well, the only thing with that is you have to be signed into the student's account. So mom or dad would have to use Bobby or Jimmy or Susie's account to get in to see everything that we see, that the kid sees. They do offer parent guardian summaries, which are weekly emails that tell you what assignments were assigned for the week, what the kid completed, what they didn't complete, what's outstanding and missing. It's a little broad and generic. It's not as detailed as the to-do list. Like the to-do list will give you things that have been assigned and are still like 2 or 3 weeks out. The parent guardian summaries don't really do that. But if mom or dad has the email and the password for the kid, they can log in anywhere. They can log in with an app on their phone. They can log in on an iPad or a tablet, the website. They just need the kid's email and password.
That's great. Thanks.
Yep. Anybody else? All right, let's jump into grading. And for grading, oh, I lost my tab. Hold on one sec. Oh, here we go. So the first one is when you are in classwork and you're looking at the assignments that the students have turned in, you've provided your feedback, you've given your grade. You don't want to have to go back to Classroom to pick the assignment, to pick the kid. What it does, Google Classroom is really cool. It offers you these little toggle arrows at the top of the screen. So it kind of brings the student's work up into a frame. So there's a frame of tools around the edges. And in the middle is the student's product, the student's assignment, whatever they've turned in. So on the side, you have a list where you can go student to student. Along the top, you have some arrows. And then on the right-hand side is where you can give comments and feedback and provide a grade. So using those arrows at the top makes it really easy to finish looking at one student, move on to the next student, put in the feedback, use the arrow, and just kind of keep going through your whole class. If you need to skip around, you can also click, I believe, on the student's name on the side, on the left-hand side to jump. So maybe you're looking at two kids who turned something in late. They're not probably going to be right next to each other, so you'd have to click the arrow like 10, 15 times. I believe you can click on the individual student name on the side and just jump right to that particular student if you don't need to go through the whole class. Another strategy that came up is particularly useful when you are giving points for slides, and there's a significant number of slides in your deck that the students are completing work on. So what you could do is when you're looking at the slide, you select an item in the slide and you provide a comment, and those comments are kept track of in the, what do you call it? The slide sorter on the side. So when you make a comment, a little kind of gray speech bubble pops up on the side and it contains a number. The number refers to the number of comments on that slide. So if you make 4 comments on a slide, the little gray speech bubble will have a number 4 in it. And if you make a comment on each of the items where the student either didn't answer it completely or didn't get the actual answer or response correct, you'll have a number on the side in your slide sorter of the points that you either need to take away or give that student in their grade. And I do have a video of how this looks linked in the last slide of additional resources. So this works really well when you have a lengthy Google Slides task for the kids to do. It really doesn't work that well in any of the other Google apps, but it works really well in Slides. The other thing that's available in Google Classroom is something called a comment bank. And what it allows you to do is put those comments that you find yourself saying all the time into a comment bank so that you can quickly insert them in. What you do is you go to make a comment, you put in the hashtag, and you start typing one of the keywords in the comment that you've already loaded in, and it will pull it up in a drop-down menu that you can click, and it will automatically insert it into the comment, and then you just hit comment. You can preload the comments, one at a time. You can add comments one at a time. You can also copy and paste them. So if you have a running list of comments that you use in a Google Doc, you can paste it in, each one on a separate line, and it will add each of them as a separate comment. You can also, for example, if you're working on an assignment and you find yourself saying all the time, you added, you didn't subtract, you added, you didn't subtract, you added, you didn't subtract. After about the 4th time of saying that, you might find it useful to add that into your comment bank. So you can add it as you're making the comment. There's a button in the comment bank section where you can do that. And then you can also use Google Forms when you're giving an assessment, which is really cool. It allows you to put the questions in. You can put in answer choices. We've talked about Google Forms a little bit with multiple choice, select all that apply, written responses. There's multiple choice grids, different things like that. So if it has pretty straightforward, simple answers, things like multiple choice, things like the multiple choice grid, one-word answers, numbers as answers, you can use the quiz feature in Google Forms to auto-grade those. But if you have something a little more complex where you have written responses or the answer can be phrased in different ways, or there might be more than one right answer, or where, for example, you have 6 choices, 3 of them are the right choice, it's one of those more than one right answers, you want them to pick all 3, but you still want to give them partial credit if they pick 2 of them, you want to use something called Flubaroo. And Flubaroo is an add-on to Google Sheets, because Google Forms puts all of the answers into Google Sheets. And when you use Flubaroo on the answers that are in the Google Sheets, it helps to calculate what grade and what score they received on that assignment. So I have another video. Flubaroo takes a little bit of time to get used to, but it is pretty useful if you give a little bit more complex quizzes and assessments. So if that's something that's interesting to you, we can talk about that a little bit more, or I have some resources at the end that you can look to. I'm going to pause here. Questions?
I have a question.
Please.
About grading. Thanks. So in the spring, this wasn't an issue because grading wasn't required.
Correct.
So this is, another new thing to tackle. And so I observed that some people were, giving weekly assignments and then just kind of grading each day as like 1/4 or 1/20th, and then just tallying it up and assigning a weekly grade
Okay.
will that work?
I think that's going to be an administration question. Because Google Classroom does have a built-in gradebook, which is awesome. However, I don't think the gradebook talks out to X2. So anything you grade in Google Classroom, you then have to transcribe and re-enter into X2. I know that's something that X2 said they're working on, but I don't think they've done it yet. So in terms of like how to grade the assignments, whether you can do a weekly grade or whether they're looking for more specific assignment by assignment type grades, I think that would have to be an administration question, just because I don't know what their expectations are.
Yeah. I mean, I still keep a hard copy grade
Oh, me
book.
too. I always did.
And so that aspect of it doesn't really matter to me because I'm double or triple entering anyway.
Yep.
That's, that way I can sleep at night.
There you go.
But the grading piece, being able to just assign a grade each day to the tasks that we're requesting, the assignments, and then to tally those up over some period of time. Because one of the challenges in the spring was, some kids fell really far behind really rapidly.
Yep.
And there was no mechanism to stop that slide. So I was hoping that, having like weekly grades, a weekly number that we could point to as your performance for that week, and then you could see trends.
Yes.
More, with fewer numbers, but the trend would still reveal itself. And so I'm trying to find some way I can communicate performance to others that's real.
That makes sense to me. Whether that's what they're looking for or not, I can't speak to. I'm not privy to those conversations.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank
But I
you.
would definitely bring it up. If it's something that you feel is successful and works, it's worth bringing it up to admin and say, can we try this?
And at some point today, I want to hear more because I'm on the Bitmoji bandwagon right now. I'm getting a lot of joy out of it. And I also want to hear about student emails and how that all ties into what we're talking about.
For Woodland, it doesn't.
Well, it does. I thought I saw an email that says that we will be having email for 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
I must have missed that email. I don't know anything about that.
I'm pretty sure I saw it today.
Well, I haven't checked my email today, so I'll do that after this. But it's possible.
So apparently we're going to be emailing kids, and therefore they're going to be emailing us.
Oh yes, isn't that delightful?
And one of my tenets of life is controlling access to me. And I don't like the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, I get it. I'll definitely have to find out what that email entails and what kind of email they're going to be opening up for them. And then I can get back to you on that one.
All right. Thank you.
Yep, no problem.
Sarah, I have a question about grading because just kind of lost my train of thought. I'm sorry. I was thinking about
That's all right.
saying. I don't know. I'll come back to it.
Okay. If it comes to you, feel free to raise your hand, put it in the chat, whatever works for you.
I know what it was.
Okay.
Some of the kids were not doing, they weren't doing the assignments daily because we were allowing them to have till Sunday night. And it got very hard to track what kids were doing. So are we moving forward this year, like Bob was saying, the expectation is every day they will be doing the work and we'll be able to check it that night. And
Yes.
like it goes on and on until Sunday, and so that we're working nonstop.
Yes. No,
7 days.
my understanding is, for example, B group, when B group is home on Monday and Tuesday, they should be either submitting on Monday and Tuesday or bringing it into school with them when they come on Thursday. Do you know what I mean? So there should not be this whole, I'm not online for a whole week. They should be online Monday. They should be online Tuesday. They should be online Wednesday. And then they're in school Thursday and Friday.
And is the expectation also that if they're at home, working from home, on Google Classroom, is that they're doing that during school hours?
That is my understanding, yes.
So
but I
it's
can't.
not like they can sleep all day and then.
I mean, technically they probably can because it's independent. It's not teacher monitored. Like we're not sitting there teaching them. They're doing things independently. So I guess technically they could.
But then what happens with that again is that, you know, we're getting emails at 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night and we
Right.
have our own families and it's
Right.
craziness. And
So I think that's just a matter of expectations and setting ground rules of things need to be turned in by 3 o'clock, 2:30, whatever you're at, like that. I don't know if that can be building based or whatever, but maybe it definitely needs to come from you that the expectation is this is when things are due. This is when things need to be turned in.
I feel that has to come from administration because otherwise the teacher will say things differently and then,
Yeah.
you know,
So I don't know. I have no idea.
I know exactly what Pam's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
We work together, and I think at 3 o'clock, because school's over, a little bit, you know, a little before 3, that may really be it, but you're right. It has to be mandated or agreed to by the administration in the building.
Yep. So that's definitely something you could bring up and just say, we had this problem in the spring. We don't want it repeated in the fall. Is this something that we can put in place for our families to adhere to?
Makes sense.
Okay. All right. I'm going to jump back in the slides. There we go. All right. So 2 more in the grading section. The first one is not responding. To be able to track your students' progress. So one thing is a lot of teachers make assignments, and when they make them, they have the student create the Google Doc, Google Slides, whatever it is that they're completing their work on. And that works, and it gives the students a little bit of independence, but unfortunately what that does is it takes away the naming process that you might have given when you create a template or an assignment for the kids to fill out and they each get their own copy of it. You may have noticed they're all titled the same. It has the title of the assignment and then a dash and then the kiddo's name, which is really easy and it makes it super helpful for the teacher to navigate between different assignments. When the students create it, it doesn't always get that naming protocol, so you lose some of that. The other thing that you lose is that you're not able to kind of check up on the students. So let's say you've assigned them something that's due at the end of the week. Maybe it's an essay, maybe it's a slides presentation, and you want to make sure that everybody's working on it as they go throughout the week. You don't want everybody jumping in on Friday afternoon, filling it in really quick and turning in these kind of half-done projects. So if you give the students a template, even if it's totally blank, as you check up on them, as you click into the assignment, you'll be able to see in your grid view who's added things, who's typed more, who's moved on from where they were before. You can also give them real-time feedback. So if you see Susie is sitting there typing her essay and she's forgetting which version of your to use, your, right? Or two, like she's totally scrolling these all up and flipping them all around. You can give her feedback in the comments of her work so that she knows what your expectation for her is grammar-wise. She also knows that you're checking up on her and she might be a little bit more inclined to put her best work forward. So even if you just kind of create a blank Word document, give it the title that you want it to have and attach that and assign it to each student, you'll have something for the kids to be doing their work on and you can log in and check up on them as they go. Google Classroom also added rubrics, which is really cool. So what you would do is you create your assignment, you attach all of the work that you want the kids to do. And on the screen, there's a grayed out button that says like plus rubric. When you click on that, you can add the different criteria down the sides, as well as some brief descriptions and point values. And what that allows you to do is when you're grading it, you can kind of click where the different scores are for the kid as you're reviewing their assignment. So it kind of has that built-in feedback as well. There's another video tutorial linked here of the step-by-step of how to do that, how to create it, as well as how to use it. And the last category I have is random stuff. So stuff that's really useful in Google Classroom, but doesn't really fit in a cohesive category of why it's useful. Oh, I'm stuck. There we go. So the first thing you can do is, come back. You can insert video directions, which is really cool. And we've used Loom. Some people still use Screencastify. Both of those are great. Those are tools that are intended more for polished teacher-led instruction type videos. When I say video directions, I'm talking about short and sweet, not necessarily the best quality of video because it loads really quick for the students as well. They don't sit there and watch this spinning wheel, and it doesn't take a lot of data to transmit. So for our kiddos who are on limited bandwidth or working off of a mobile device, it doesn't eat up a ton of data, which is nice. So there's an extension here specifically for this. You just click, put install to Chrome and follow all of the permissions except the video, except the audio. You can record short spontaneous videos right here sitting at your dining room table. 30-second limit. I'm not kidding when I say short and sweet. So you're gonna say what you need to say and get off. They are automatically stored in your drive. And what that allows you to do is when you go to add them to your assignment, you insert them as a link, or you insert them as your attachment from your drive. So you go to your add from your Google Drive, you locate the file you want to add, you click and you add it. And you can add as many of these as you want. So maybe your assignment has 3 different parts and you need 3 different sets of directions. So you can add 3 different videos here. Again, there's a blog post talking about specifically how to do that. And the next thing that's really useful, this was very handy for me over the spring with one of my kids, was private comments. So it allows communication directly between the teacher and the student and doesn't get shown to any of the other students. You'll notice that when you pull up an assignment, or at least the students notice when they pull up an assignment, underneath the assignment, there's a place for class comments. These are comments that everybody in the class can see. On the right-hand side, next to all of the attachments that have been included in the assignment, there's a place for private comments. These go directly to the student and nobody else gets to see them. It's also a place for the teacher to provide feedback. Maybe you didn't want to put a comment in the slides or the doc because the students have trouble seeing that. You can put the feedback in the private comments. You could put, hey, you only finished the first 2 problems. Why didn't you do the other 8? Or you only did the first 2 slides of this activity. Why didn't you do the last 2? You can say, you turned this in late, or why haven't you turned this in? The students can ask you questions if they're stuck and they don't know how to do something, but they're shy. It's just like raising their hand and coming to talk to you privately. So it's a really great tool for the students to feel safe in the questions that they have to ask. For the students, like I said, when they click on the assignment, it shows up right on the right-hand side. For the teacher, you have to go into the assignment, click on the particular student, and it will show up again on the right-hand side, but you have to go into that student's work. Originality reports. What's up? Somebody have something? Okay. All right, originality reports are basically a plagiarism checker. The students run these, but they first have to be turned on by the teacher. So when you go to create an assignment, there's a place to turn on the originality reports. Students can complete 3 originality reports per assignment. So if they've typed up their assignment, their report, whatever it is, they run their originality report and it comes back as a lot of things that seem to be unoriginal. They can go back and work on their report again. They can do that report 3 times. The teacher does view what those reports say. So they will view all 3 versions of that report. So you'll be able to see, oh, look, on the first report, it was 100% unoriginal. They copy and paste it. The second time, and maybe it's 76%. And then they finally got to 46. So they reworked it. You'll be able to check up on their progress. So if you're doing the kind of work where students have to be super careful of plagiarism and copying things offline, this is something that might be really useful to you. Another thing I found online that was a really good idea, I thought, was to have a specific Google Classroom for your early finishers. Now, this might not be super important when we're doing remote learning, although it could be, but particularly when we're in the classroom, those kiddos who always seem to finish early are kind of the one-offs that, hey, he really gets it with this content area, this topic, and he's finishing super fast, and I don't know what to give him to do next. All of those kind of resources we have around the classroom, all of those fun worksheets or websites, you can drop all of that into this classroom. So all you would do is create a new Google Classroom, invite all of your students, whether you're teaching the same 22 kids all day long, whether you switch with one other teacher, or whether you rotate like I know they do in 5th grade or the EL classes and things like that. Put all of the kids in the same class because this work is not graded. So it's just a place that's a repository, a file cabinet essentially, for those activities that the kids can do to stay busy and extend their learning. So as the year goes on, we tend to get bogged down in the stuff that's posted in Google Classroom. There's a lot in there. It's a year's worth of curriculum. So if you're looking for something specific, you can use the find feature. And this works on most of the Google apps, where if you push Control F or Command F if you're on a Mac, type in the keyword, it will find that word in anything on that screen. So whether it's a Google Doc itself, Google Slides, Google Sheets, or in Google Classroom. So let's say you're looking for an assignment about multiplication. You type in multiplication, it's going to show you all of the assignments that contain the word multiplication. So that way it might be a little easier to find the one that you're looking for. And then you can also design a custom header. So this kind of goes along with the whole Bitmoji craze that's going on right now. And it doesn't have to be Bitmoji, but a lot of teachers are starting to customize the header, the bar that you see across the top of your Google Classroom. There's a template I linked here. It's the right size, it's the right dimensions. You just have to insert whatever you want in there. You can change the background color, you can put clip art in there. If you do the Bitmoji thing, you can pop those in there. You can add text, arrows, whatever you want. Save the picture, download it as a picture, and then upload it into your Google Classroom. It will be kind of darkened out. It does get shaded. So just be aware that you don't want to include things that are really dark. Bright and light is better for Google Classroom headers. Again, there's a link of how to do that and some other header templates if you want to change your Twitter or Google Forms, things like that. There's other templates and tutorials in the link at the bottom of this page. And then our last one goes back to what Patty was talking about a little bit. Archiving and copying classes. It is best practice to archive your class at the end of the year. So archive, like we said, is kind of putting it in the file cabinet. It doesn't delete anything. You still have access to everything, but it takes it out of your main dashboard. So how you do that is you click on the 3 dots and there's a choice to archive and it's going to say, are you sure? And you say yes. You can get back into your archive classes and reactivate them if you choose by going to the hamburger in the upper left. Scroll down to where it says archived classes and you'll see all of them. You can copy any class, either archived or live. Again, click on the 3 dots, select copy. If it's got a lot of stuff in it, a lot of assignments, a lot of posts, it's going to take a little while. If it's a pretty empty class, it should happen almost right away. And once you've done that, all of the things that you've put in that classroom are now drafts, which means you can go into that classroom. You can Control F to find your welcome message. It pulls it up. You can still edit it. You can change dates. You can change, maybe you're calling your kiddos something different this year. Maybe last year you called them hawks and this year you're calling them bears. You can edit all of that and then you can post it to your class just like a regular assignment. That's all I have for today. Like I said, there's a slide here with a bunch of additional resources. I have some stuff to add still, some Flubaroo stuff. And a few other videos I have, but essentially that's it for today. I do want to make sure everybody has a little break before the union meeting. So questions, comments, things you want clarified?
Was great. Thank you, Sarah.
No problem.
Thank you, Sarah.
Of course.
Thank you.
Sarah, I'm just going to update that student email reference I made.
Perfect.
It wasn't an email. It was
Okay.
another form of communication, and it's in process. as
Okay.
they negotiate with Gaggle. Is that
Yes.
thing?
Yes.
Okay.
So what Gaggle does is Gaggle is kind of our monitoring tool that we use for all Google-based stuff. And it basically filters anything Google goes through this filter, and that's why the principals get like emails and phone calls about inappropriate and bullying and swear words and all that kind of stuff. So they must be trying to expand Gaggle to also do email for 3rd through 5th because it's not cheap.
Sarah, are you still holding your office hours on Wednesday?
I am. Come join us.
Yeah, because I met with Lisa and Craig today, and we have some technology questions you might be able to help with. So,
Okie doke.
And I'm curious on how do we insert those Bitmojis into our slides? What's the
Nice.
most?
So there is actually a Bitmoji extension. I can put the link in the chat. And basically what that allows you to do is it takes all of the customization that you've put on your Bitmoji on your phone or whatever, and allows you to pull those different images into your Google stuff. So you just click on it, you search for the picture you want, and then you right click on it and you copy paste it into your slides or docs or whatever it is that you have going on. So I'm going to throw that extension in the chat, and you just do install and follow the directions. And you have to sign in. So whether you did a Snapchat sign in or whether you did a email sign in, you just sign in the same way.
Okay, thank you.
careful,
Yep.
it's addicting.
It is. I had a question related to that.
Please.
I saw they have like a dance thing. Are there any movement resources? I know I can make something slide across the
Mhm.
screen, like on a slideshow or something, but are there any that you can make them move?
For the Bitmoji specifically?
Yes.
Nope. The only movements that I've found, and Anne might know more because, the only thing I've seen with the movements for the Bitmojis is the filters that you can do through Snapchat.
Okay. Okay. How about
There's
other
not that many.
animation things out there, or?
I know the Memojis are animated, but they're not that great.
Okay.
Yeah, I'd have to look into that and see if I can find any. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
honestly haven't looked yet. I've been addicted to Bitmoji, but
Yep.
thank you.
Anytime. Anybody else?
Thank
But we can add GIFs to GIFs images to our slides. Not Bitmoji, but you know, I have spinning stars and
Yeah.
different things.
So you might be able to find a GIF of somebody doing something, like whether you want them to do jumping jacks or something specific. You might be able to find a GIF of someone doing that and put that in there. So if you use the best website I found is Giphy. They seem to have the best ones and the most selection. Hold on one sec. I'll throw that link in the chat as well. All right, so this is the site I usually use to find GIFs for slides and stuff. You got to be careful. Some of them are inappropriate, so make sure you watch them before you put them in.
Sarah, what website do you use for all your slides? Your
Ooh, so slides. So I have a couple. The first one I use is Slides Mania.
Okay.
She's awesome. She's got great stuff. There's also Slides Go and Slides Carnival. They're both really good.
I think I've used Slides Carnival before.
Yeah. Slides Mania seems to update a little more. Like she's on Twitter and Facebook and all this other kind of stuff. And she's started doing teacher submissions, like teachers submit their own templates and she posts them up for them. But if you go to the Summer PD website,
Yep.
at the bottom, I've linked all of these websites, but I also linked my folder that I use. So I have a whole like folder of ones that I've kind of added to my Google Drive. So you're welcome to pull from those too.
Thank you.
Anybody else? What's up, Patty? You saying goodbye?
Bye, Sarah.
Bye.
Everybody.
Thank you.
Anytime.
What's that? Take care.
All right. Have a good night, afternoon, everyone.